Shanti. Are you all happy? Today we are going to discuss about whether or not Lord Vishnu took a pig form, which is called Varaha avatar. Did he really take a pig form? There are some atheists who would say ironically that if he takes a pig form to save this planet Earth from drowning, it doesn't really make sense, because the ocean itself is a part of Earth. It's above Earth. So how can he protect Earth from drowning into the ocean by lifting it out? So they ask this because of the scientific knowledge they have gained now, but previously nobody had this knowledge, so they didn't say anything about this. But till then, is it possible for a pig to lift the whole Earth? So it obviously means it didn't happen as such. We don't even need a science for this. We know for sure that it didn't happen, but it has some deep spiritual meaning attached to it, which we are not aware of. That's the actual approach how we should look these Vedic stories. And now we are going to reveal the spiritual secret behind this story. Well, all our videos are doing the same. And why God has to take that specific form, pig form? Because everybody looks at pig very inferior. There are some religions, they don't even consider eating pork. So that's how we hate pig. And now in Vedas it is mentioned that God himself has taken the pig form. So why have they mentioned that? And there's also another story where Lord Vishnu and Lord Brahma, they quarrel with each other on who is the greatest one, who has the highest power. So they went to God Shiva, and God Shiva says, those who first reach my head or feet, they'll be declared the greatest. So Brahma took his swan and started to flew up to see the head of God Shiva, and Mahavishnu, he took his Varaha avatar, that is the pig form, and he dug deep into the earth to reach the feet of God Shiva, and none of them succeeded. It obviously means God Shiva is the greatest. So that's why that story was created. So in these two stories, what is the actual meaning? Why only Lord Vishnu was shown to have taken that pig form to save the earth? So that is what we are going to see now. And before that, we have to know the introduction of the knowledge given directly by God. I'm not going to give the knowledge that was taken from Vedas, but from the knowledge given directly by God right now. He is giving that. And the knowledge goes that we are not this perishable body, but an imperishable soul that shines like a tiny star in between our eyebrows, and that is why we wear bindis right here. And before taking birth, we were without bodies in this area called the soul world, or Parandam, or Parlok. this is where we used to be before taking birth on earth, and even God was with us there, and he was also a tiny point of light, which means he is also a soul. The only difference between God and other souls is that he doesn't take birth and death like all other souls do. That's the only difference that separates God from other souls. When we first take birth in earth, it was heaven, and we were deities. We had these divine characters. That is why we were called deities initially, and it is a 5000 year time cycle. So for the first 2500 years the earth was heaven, and after completing the first 2500 years, the earth, which was once heaven, slowly turns into hell, and we start developing body consciousness. Before that, while we were in heaven, we used to have soul consciousness, which means we didn't consider ourselves to be this body, but we would be continuously aware of the fact that we were souls that dwell in between the eyebrows of this body. That is how we consider ourselves, that is how we consider others. So as a consequence, we didn't have something called lust, anger, greed, attachment and ego. So what's the net result? We didn't have anything, any type of sorrow. All we experienced in heaven was happiness, peacefulness, blissfulness and wealthiness. That is purely because of our soul consciousness, because that is what soul consciousness is capable of doing. But after the completion of first 2500 years, we forget that we were souls, so we started to consider ourselves to be this perishable body, because of which we fall for these 5 vices such as lust, anger, greed, attachment and ego, and it starts giving pain, sorrow, which is why we started to create religions and Vedas. So it all emerged out of it. Nothing happened as such. They just had this urge to write those Vedas, so they have written it. They didn't rationalize it. Whatever occurred to them, they just put it in words, and we have been following it till now. That's how all religions emerged. And towards the end of this hell, that is after the completion of towards the completion of the 5000 years, God himself comes to this earth. As I mentioned earlier, he doesn't take births, so he enters an old man's body directly. So he names that old man as Brahma, and he starts delivering this teaching through him, and that is what we have been sharing in all our videos. God says, you were deities in the beginning because you were soul conscious, and now you have become an ordinary man who is filled with sorrow. That's probably because you're body conscious. So to escape from all the pain and sufferings in this hell, all you need to do is to forget the fact, you have to forget that you are this perishable body. Instead, you have to remind yourself that you are an imperishable soul that shines like a star in between your eyebrows. So, but is it possible for you to do it and to conquer lust, anger, greed, attachment? The answer is definitely not. You can't do it on your own, because all our souls has lost its power to conquer lust now. So the only way out is to remember God as a point of light, because so far we didn't have any knowledge of how God looks like, because we just we've been reading Vedas, that's it, and in no Vedas there is any mention about the appearance of God or about the acts of God. Only God can reveal it, and He is revealing it right now. God's duty is only to give this knowledge towards the end of this kalpa. Yes, this 5000 year time cycle is called a kalpa. So whatever happens in one kalpa, that keeps repeating kalpa after kalpa. To understand it very easily, if you are watching it right now, it obviously means you have watched it 5000 years back on this very same day, and you will be watching it same again 5000 years after this time. So it is that accurate. And God says, since you were deities or angels in the beginning, it is you who is going to be like that, because this world is going to become heaven very soon. And that is why God comes and gives this knowledge, and He says all you need to do is to consider yourself, is to remind yourself constantly that you are this soul. You have to constantly remind that it is the soul that looks through your eyes, it is the soul that listens through ears. So this way you can be sure of the fact that you are souls, and you have to remember God also as a point of light, because only now we know that He is also a soul. That is why He is called the Supreme Soul, and He is the Father of all souls, because He gives this knowledge and helps us to conquer heaven again. So that is why He is also called the Supreme Father by Christians, and His name is Shiva, God Shiv. Shiv means the point of light, and this same God is called Allah. So all these three, the Supreme Father, the Supreme Soul, and Allah, they all represent a single God, and nobody else is God. Everybody else is human, whether it is Jesus Christ, whether it is Shri Krishna, all took birth to a mother. If they take birth, obviously they will have to face the death as well. Just because we want them to be God, it doesn't mean they didn't die. They died. They are here in a different form, because all has to undergo the rebirth cycle. So everybody gets caught in this birth and death cycle except God. So God's part comes only in the end, and He gives this knowledge exactly as He did in the past kalpa. So this is what actually happens, because this is the knowledge directly from God. Vedas might be false because it was written by humans who had no knowledge about God or about the past and future, but God is the knower of 3 times, and so He gives this knowledge, and it is the remembrance of what He gives now which is emerged in Vedas in the next kalpa. What we read in Vedas now, they were the memoir of what happened in the previous kalpa. This is how it happens, but nobody knows this fact. It just comes out of them just like a dream, and they start writing it. That's it. So let's come to the topic now. So what about the pig form? We have to know that God enters an old man's body, right? God names him Brahma, and it is this Brahma, after taking this knowledge, after putting much effort in making him into soul consciousness by thinking of God Shiva constantly, he manages to wash out all his sins that's been accumulating over his past births. As a result, he becomes Shri Krishna in the next birth in heaven. That is why in Hindu temples they celebrate the opening ceremony of heaven in Shri Krishna's temple, because he is the first king of heaven. So it means it is Shri Krishna, after taking several births for the 5000 years, he becomes Brahma in the end, and the same Brahma becomes Shri Krishna again. And whatever happens to Shri Krishna, that happens to all other deities. Everybody else takes rebirth just as Shri Krishna, and everybody is now in hell. and God gives this knowledge and awakens them. This is what in Bible it is written, that God will awaken them in the end. But people, without knowing the fact that spirituality means the knowledge about spirit, they just take it in the physical sense. So they think that God will come and awaken us from our burial ground. What is there to be awakened? There won't be anything left, right? Okay, so God is reminding us that we were the deities, the masters of heaven in the beginning, and he gives this knowledge right now. And God will not come to heaven, he will go back to where he came from, and we will also go back, because there will be a world war in the end, followed by the natural calamities. So the whole world would be washed out, or else you can call it the cleaning process, because it has to become heaven, right? So there's no need to be afraid of that, because we souls are imperishable. The only thing we need to do is to make it as pure as it was in the beginning. So no deities in heaven knew anything about lust, greed, anger, attachment and ego. And that is why in Bible Jesus Christ says, if you do not become as pure as the children, it is true that you will never enter heaven. So the truth God gives now is emerged in Bible. That's it. It doesn't mean he knows the fact, it just emerges out of them. Okay, God now says as to remember him as much as possible, to wash away all our past sins, to become as pure as God himself. Okay, so this is what happens. This is the truth. And in that story it is mentioned that Shri Krishna or Mahavishnu, he takes the form of a pig. We all know that pig is always looked down upon by others. So it obviously means when we take the deity birth for the first time, for instance, if we were Shri Krishna in the beginning, our soul has immense power, that we can make anything happen just by the power of our thought. For example, if we want it to rain now, it will rain instantly. If we want it to stop, it will stop instantly. That's the kind of power we had in our thoughts in the beginning. But the reason we lost those powers is because we became slaves to these 5 vices, and that is why God asks us to conquer those 5 vices, especially the lust. The only way to do that is to have soul consciousness as before. So the soul, any soul that takes birth, that enters this birth and death cycle in the beginning, will be filled with full power. But after taking several rebirths, it gradually loses its power, and towards the end of this 5000 year cycle, it almost becomes empty. That is when God comes and gives this knowledge to fill the souls with full power. So you can compare the soul after losing all its power to a pig, because the soul is of that nature. Now wherever you see every man and women, they are all filled with lust, greed, anger, attachment, ego, especially this lust. That is why God says lust is the greatest enemy in Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Even Jesus Christ was killed for preaching this truth. That is why he defends the war, who was beaten by the crowd. He asked, if you are pure, then you can stone her, which obviously means he was preaching this purity, this chastity or celibacy. But it was not given directly in Bible, otherwise they would have known it. If it was mentioned directly in Gita and Bible, then there is no need for God to come in the end, right? So it was not there. Well, there was some truth, very maybe 1 or 2% truth in all religions. That's it. Only God is the truth, not any human. Okay, so that is why Sri Krishna's soul, he was Krishna in the beginning, but in the end he was an ordinary man with having become slave to these five vices, which is why it was mentioned that Sri Krishna took the form of a boar, that is a pig. It doesn't mean he was born as a pig, but it just refers to the fact that he has become so bad in the end. That's it. Whatever is mentioned of Sri Krishna, it also applies to all other souls. So let's take these two examples. The first one was, he takes the Varaha avatar to save the world from drowning into the ocean. What it means is, it is the ocean of vices or poison. These five vices are called poison. So God actually enters the old body of the last birth of Sri Krishna to give this knowledge, to save this world from drowning, or to save all the souls from drowning, because the world is being drowned by the ocean of poison, right? That is why it is mentioned so. So it doesn't mean that pigs save the world, but it actually means God enters him and he reminds him of his first birth and makes him ascend into Sri Krishna again. So while taking this knowledge, he becomes Brahma, and that is why it is shown in the drawing where Mahavishnu lies in the ground and a lotus flower emerged out of his navel point, and Brahma was seated above the lotus. It means the Krishna's soul or the Mahavishnu's soul is almost dead towards the end of this kalpa, which means it has lost all its consciousness of what it was in the beginning, and that is when God enters him and gives the knowledge. First he names him Brahma and gives this knowledge. After listening to this knowledge, Brahma is slowly ascending up. This is exactly mentioned in this story, that Lord Brahma was actually ascending towards the head of God Shiva to find its head. That is what that story, that second story of finding the head and feet of God Shiva represents. So after becoming Brahma, it will be climbing up the ladder here, but after getting this knowledge, it has climbed up the ladder to become Sri Krishna again. But after becoming Krishna, it has to descend down, because that's the fate. It has to enter rebirths, and in the end it will be more like pig. So that is why it is mentioned that Mahavishnu takes the pig form and he starts digging deeper and deeper, which means Krishna's soul is falling down. That is what it is mentioned. Since Krishna's soul is almost dead, it is shown that Mahavishnu is lying in the dead posture, but people think he is sleeping. Well, you can say that, because sleeping and death, it feels the same, because we are not aware of who we are while we were asleep, right? Okay, that's it guys, this is the truth, and if you want to know more truth, rush to the nearest Raj Yoga Meditation Center. It is there, you can search in Google, but if you want us to help you with that, you can WhatsApp me in this number +91 98 946 71743. We will help you locate the nearest Raj Yoga Meditation Center in your country, because it is there almost in all the countries across the globe. Okay, thanks for watching. Please share this video to all the friends and relatives who belong to many religions, because this knowledge belongs to everybody, because it is God who gives this, not the religious preacher who teaches this knowledge, because nobody is aware of it. Only God knows this, and He is giving this to all the humans. So help spread this knowledge by sharing these videos, and also subscribe to this channel so that you can get many videos regularly. Thanks for watching.